All right, let's take a look at Lord Windgrace. I think I'm only going to talk in detail about the +2 ability, the -3. So Lord Windgrace comes in uh, and uh, and so it's got 5 loyalty and it pluses 2, so that's great. It becomes a 7 loyalty immediately. Uh, and the +2 says discard a card, then draw a card. If a land card is discarded this way, draw an additional card. I'll talk about it in a second. The -3, return up to 2 target land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's pretty obvious. Then -11, the so-called ultimate, and sometimes it isn't if it's not an ultimate. Destroy up to six target non-land permanents, then create 6 2/2 green cat warrior creature tokens with forest walk, meaning that if your opponent contains a forest, they're unblockable. Uh, this doesn't really read like a gigantic end of game ultimate. I mean, 6 target non-land permanents if you have 3 opponents. I don't think that's a lot. But anyways, that's my opinion. And so when we talk about the +2, I always like to think about what happens first. So if you discard first, it's nicer when you draw the card because then the card can be added to your selection and then you can make a better choice with that card in hand. Here, you just discard a card. So if a land card is discarded this way, draw an additional card. I immediately think of Crucible of Worlds because it just came out in M19 and I'm crazy about this card, even though I'm sure it's like a one-off in a few commander decks and that's it. At least that's what I think. I could be wrong. But I think you will be able to discard lands, and you'll want to discard lands. And so, in an improved or beefed up version of this deck, or if you break it up and you build several commander decks, which is what I'm planning to do with whichever one I buy. I'm not even sure if I'm going to buy 1, 2, 3, or 4. I don't really know at this point. We'll see how it goes. But yeah. So the other commanders. One of them is Gyrus, Waker of Corpses. It's got an X ability with a minimum of 3 of the 3 colors of Jund. It's aggressive. It enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. That includes that 3 mana. So if you spend 10 mana on it, it comes in as a 10/10. That's pretty good. When it attacks, you may exile target creature card with lesser power from your graveyard. Again, if it comes in and it's really big, that pretty much means any creature, okay, any creature in your graveyard. So if you do, okay, then you create a token that's a copy of that card, tapped and attacking, and exile it at the end of combat. So this theme is very similar to Valduk's theme. And so, I don't know. I think I would put Valduk in a deck with Gyrus. The other commander is Thantis, the War Weaver, 6/5/5 Vigilance and Reach. All creatures attack each combat if able. That just reads chaos all over the place. I'm not a fan of chaos, but you know, that's fine. Every now and then, I'm sure it's cool to build a deck which is just total mayhem. And whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, put a +1/+1 counter on Thantis, the War Weaver. Yeah, sure, you know, it's got a counters theme and it's crazy. Why not? Then Zangcha, Sleeper Agent, is tricky. It reminds me of Humble Defector from Fate Reforged, which I'm not going to discuss, but you can stop the video and check it out if you've never seen it before, or if you don't remember it. So as it enters the battlefield, an opponent of your choice gains control of it. Okay, so it's controlled by somebody else. It'll attack each turn if able, and if it can't attack, it cannot attack its owner or planeswalkers its owner controls. Well, once you give it to somebody else, and it's an opponent of your choice, then Zangcha is not yours. So it cannot attack its owner, but I think it's going to be that new player, that player you gave the card to, and planeswalkers that person controls. Yeah, I don't get it. I'm reading it as the owner is the person you just gave the card to. But I take it back because I think own means that it came from my deck. I take it back. So that's good. Okay, I get it now. I get it now. So Sancha cannot attack me or planeswalkers I control, and I'm giving it to you. And then anybody at the table is going to feed mana like crazy. And you, the person I gave this card to, are the controller. I'm the owner and you're the controller. And so, yeah, we're just going to ping the living daylights out of you. Uh, but yeah, but you're going to draw a card. We're going to hit you for 2, and you're going to draw a card. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. It's very interesting. It's an interesting card. I wouldn't build a whole deck around it. I'm not a fan of the trickiness. I'm more of a straightforward, simple player, simple-minded player. Uh, and I don't really like the chaos theme either. But definitely Gyrus or Gyrus or Gyro, I definitely would build something with it. I think of the 3, this one's the one that I would build something with once I tore up this deck and built other decks with it, which I'm not sure I will do. Okay, so Budoka Gardener is a legendary creature from Champions of Kamigawa block. And so when it comes in, you may tap it. You tap it, you can tap it, and if you do, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. And then you flip it if you can control 10 or more lands. That's pretty crazy. I think a lot of games you're just not going to flip this dude. But you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. That's good. And now I love these cards. There's one like this one in Dominaria, but you'd be surprised how often you do not have that extra land. At least I find myself surprised about how often I do not have that extra land. So I'm not excited about the having 10 or more lands to flip it, and it's fine. It's nice that you can put an extra land. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, this deck has been bandied about, been called a lands deck. I guess it is. So then when you flip it, it becomes Dokai, Weaver of Life, and if you pump it with 6, 4 green green, and you tap it, you create a big token, which is the number. Its X is the number of lands you control. You already had to control 10 or more lands, so it's going to be at least a 10-10. For 6, that's really good. The flip is really good. Yeah, the flip is definitely very good. I just don't see how often. I mean, it'll depend on your table, the people you're playing, but I know these days, unfortunately, there's a bifurcation in the Commander community where a lot of people still play old school Commander, which tends to be a lot more casual by our standards, a lot of junk rares. And then there's a camp of spikes. So if your table is a spike table, this thing is just never going to flip. You're either going to win or lose the game in 4, 5, 6 turns. In which case, I doubt you'll get to 10 lands. The Loyal Apprentice, I believe, is in the Izzet Artifacts Saheeli deck that I already talked about before. So it's got the Lieutenant ability. If you control your commander, okay, you create a Thopter, and you don't exile it or anything like that. You get to keep it, and it's a 2-drop. That's pretty good. The Subordinate is in the Esper deck. The Aminatu. Yeah, it's not Anima, it's Amina. Has a Lieutenant also. It's got Menace, the Loyal Apprentice. So these are all Loyals. There's a whole cycle of them in these decks. The Red Loyal has Haste. The Black Loyal has Menace. And the Lieutenant, I personally really like this card because each opponent loses 3 life. That adds up. That immediately puts pressure. And I like this card a lot because you need cards to take the life count down so the game can end in less than an hour or less than 2 hours, whatever it is. The Turntimber Sower is a 3/3/3. Whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you get a 0/1 green plant creature token. You can sacrifice 3 creatures for green, and return target land card from your graveyard to your hand. So yeah, okay, that'll give you, it'll increase your land count, and the tokens obviously are meant to be sacrificed because they're not really that powerful. Then the Blood Tracker is a 4/2 flyer, and for 1 black, and you pay 2 life, you can put a counter on it. That's not bad. In Commander, you're gonna have more life than you would in Constructed. So, and then when it leaves the battlefield, you draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. This is a great card. I mean, 4/2 flyer that you can drop counters on. I would put this dude in a counters deck. You know, like in an Anafenza deck, and I would just drop counters until there's no tomorrow, and even have like a sack outlet or something, like a bone tool or something, and then just get a bunch of cards. This would be my draw engine. I wouldn't even use it to hit anybody. Then the Fury Storm, I think there's a storm cycle in these decks. It's a 4-drop instant. When you cast a spell, copy it for each time you've cast your commander. New targets, you know, you can copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets. I've never really played this type of card, if you can believe it. I don't really know how good it is. I mean, I'm sure in a blue-red instants and sorceries deck, like the wizard deck that Adeliz from Dominaria can be built around with, it would be very powerful. I'm not sure it's going to be that powerful in this deck, but again, these pre-con products are not, they're not meant to stand alone and be played completely exactly as they came out. I think a much better idea for a player, since they're intended for new Commander players, is to tear the deck up and make other decks. And so I would take Fury Storm and put it in one of those instants and sorcery decks. Again, like I've mentioned before with the other card in this cycle that I was talking about, I believe in the Aminatu deck. You know, if you've cast your commander for your command zone multiple times, it means something had to happen to it. So that must mean, I would tend to say that's a game in which you're not doing as well as you could be. That's just my opinion. Reality Scramble is a 4-drop sorcery. It's got a wall of text, and it's got Retrace. So put target permanent you own on the bottom of your library. Okay? Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card that shares a card type with that permanent. Let's call it an enchantment. Then put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is pretty good if whatever you have of that type, you know for a fact, is the weakest one in your deck. Then when you play this trick, you're always going to get a better one. It's even better if, say, you have a deck where you only have, say, 2 enchantments or 3 enchantments, and one of them is the weak one, and the other one or the 2 are really, 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 really strong. Okay, because you're putting the card on the battlefield. Okay, and you're not paying its mana cost. You're just putting it on the battlefield. So I think this is a very creative card that would make me want to put very lopsided selections of permanents. So very lopsided. I would put in a really super lame enchantment, and then every other enchantment would be brutal. And I would maybe like tutor for that lame enchantment. I don't know. I have to think about it. Because if you're going to tutor, you might as well tutor for the good one. But this thing for 4 mana lets you play it for free. Right? Put that card onto the battlefield. You're not casting it. So that's something to think about. And then the retrace bit, you may cast this from the graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. That's almost like a flashback with a cost of dropping a land. That's pretty good. You get to do it twice. That's really nice. I really like this card actually. Then the Crash of Rhino Beetles 5/5/5 Trampler gets +10/+10 as long as you control 10 or more lands. That's really nice. I mean, in a lands deck, and you would beef up this deck so that it really was a lands deck. Right now, I would call it the beginnings, the seed for a lands deck. That's a huge boost, man. 15/15 Trampler. is nothing to laugh at. The Loyal Guardian is part of a cycle, I believe. Yeah, the Loyals. Right, we already talked about two of them, didn't we? Yeah, the Apprentice and the Subordinate. Now we're talking about the Guardian. 5/4/4 Trampler with Lieutenant. If you control your commander, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. That's fantastic. That's really good. And all you need to do is control your commander. That ain't bad. And it's a 5/4/4 Trample. It's already not a terrible card. Nesting Dragon is your 5-flyer, 5/4 dragon with landfall. And then the landfall trigger creates a 0/2 red dragon egg creature token with defender, and when it dies, create a 2/2 red dragon creature token with flying, and this creature can get boosted with red mana with +1/+0 for 1 for each mana. Each red mana. That's fine. That's fine. It's a great dragon. I think to put in a dragon deck. M19's coming in with a dragon deck. I would try to put this in there and see how it goes. I mean, you know, you need a flyer in your Jund deck, so that's fine. But I have to say, I think there are better dragons than this one. But this is a good addition to red flying dragons, of which there are many, of course, in Shivan Dragon. Okay, so now Windgrace's Judgment, of course, it goes with Windgrace. It's a 5-drop instant for any number of opponents. That's going to be 3 in a table of 4. Destroy target non-land permanent that player controls. That's good. You get to choose which one it is for 5. That is really good because that can be a planeswalker. That can be a creature with like 10 counters on it. That can be a lot of really nasty things. And you get to pick the very best one from each one of your opponents. I think it's a fantastic card. For 5, I think it's a bargain. Emissary of Crush has 6/6/5 Flying Haste. As it enters the battlefield, secretly choose an opponent. I kind of like these cards. Then at some point in the game you reveal, hey, it's you, dude, or you do that. Choose new targets for target spell or ability if it's controlled by the chosen player, and if it targets you or a permanent you control, activate it once. Okay, so that is gonna, I don't know, destroy all your creatures. Boom, you say, hey, you're my secret opponent. I'm gonna take that spell and put it on you too. So yeah, you're choosing new targets, so the spell will resolve and hit you. Fine, wipes you out, but then you wipe that player out too. Yeah. It's definitely going to benefit the other 2 players, whatever happens, because whatever damage that player is doing to you, you're doing to him or her effectively. So it's kind of a cancel out card. I would have to be very careful about it. I guess if you're going to get hit, you're going to get hit. You might as well hit them too. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And it's a flyer. It's a flyer. That's fine. Then the Hydra, 6/4/4 with reach. When it enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures with flying. That's pretty good. Put a +1/+1 counter on this for each creature destroyed this way. I think that's legit. That's definitely legit. You're going to kill at least 1 creature, so you're going to get a square 6. If you kill 2, then you get a 6/6/6. So yeah, that's good. That's solid. Then for the reprints, Skewed Mob, which I have played, and I kind of think it sucks, frankly, because, okay, so it's a 1-drop 1/1, and you got to control 5 or more lands, and then it becomes a 1/5/5. That's fine, but you really have to draw it then, or else it just sits in your hand for a while. I'm not too much of a fan of cards that sit in my hand for a while for some weird conditions, so no, I must say I'm not thrilled about Skewed Mob. And I have played it, and that's the conclusion that I reached after playing it. Then the Explorer is a 2/3/1, so it's aggressive. And when it enters the battlefield, each player may discard a card. They don't have to. And then whoever discarded a card can get a basic land card into their hand, including you. I don't like it. I don't like this group hug lands thing. I'd rather play something that costs 1 more mana or 2 more mana, and it only nets me a land. So no, I'm not a fan. The Sakura Tribe Elder is great, classic. It's about to die, chump block, and then you also sack it after it defends you, and then you go get a basic land card. Yeah, it's a classic. It can go in pretty much any deck that has green in it. Yeah, great. The elf 3/1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your land. Yeah, okay, lands. Gets you a land. It's a 3-drop. I think there are better cards that get you a land, but this is fine. This is fine. Then the Elder, 2 basic lands as a 3/2/1. That's pretty good. So again, you're in a land stack. You want to ramp, ramp, ramp. Not sure why it's called a land stack. It should just be called a ramp deck. But anyways, it's called a land stack. That's fine. 4/1/1. The Centaur enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the number of lands in all graveyards. Yeah, you've been dropping lands in your graveyard, so you at least have made sure that that's the case. But then you also need to make sure you protect your graveyard. So I think when we get to the spells, we're going to be looking out for things that destroy artifacts and enchantments. And yeah, you're not on blue, so you're not countering any spell. Yeah, fine, that's good. 4/1/1 trample. Whenever a land card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, you may pay green. And if you do, return this card to your hand from the graveyard. That's good. Zendikar Incarnate it was in one of the uncommon cycles. I'm going to say Origins. It's an okay card. It's not that great. I've played it. Equal to the number of lands you control. Yeah, sure, you're going to control lots of lands in this deck. It doesn't have trample. It doesn't have anything. It's really a vanilla except for that star for the number of lands. So it can be very aggressive. It can be a 6/4, but it doesn't have any ability other than that. The slime is fantastic. Goes in so many decks. So useful. A key card, and yeah, it's just so good. So good. It's got Death Touch, but more than anything else, when it comes in, you can destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. And that land hit is what I usually use it for. I usually smack a land with this thing. More of the creatures. 6/4/4, the Woodcrasher with landfall. Whenever a land enters under your control, you're going to have a lot of lands entering if you manage this deck well. It gets 4/4/4 against trample. That's a 6/8/8. That is really nice. And it's not a one-time thingy. So if you're able to drop 2 lands on that same turn, it becomes a 12/12. That is fantastic. Then the dragon is a 6/5/5 flyer, and when it attacks, you may pay X and a single red, and it deals X damage to any target. That any target can include a planeswalker. Okay, and that's really important. Any target is very good. Then the Baloths 6/6/6 Trampler creates a 4/4 green beast creature token with its landfall trigger. And again, just like the Woodcrasher, sometimes you're going to trigger landfall twice. I think both of these cards, the Woodcrasher and the Baloths, are fantastic in this deck because you're dropping lots of lands. Rubble Hulk, it gets its power and toughness out of the number of lands you have after 6. The Blood Rush, I think, is very good. You discard it, and target creature gets +X/+X when it's a number of lands you control. If I remember correctly, this card, I don't know if I'm remembering it correctly yet, this card is from Gatecrash. I could be wrong, but it's a very good card. It can hit really hard. Soul of Innistrad, 6/6/6 Death Touch. You pump it with 5, get 3 of your critters out of the graveyard to your hand, or you pump it with 5, exile it from your graveyard, and then you still get the 3 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So you can do it twice. It's almost like a flashback ability. The Avenger of Zendikar, 7/5/5. You create a bunch of tokens. So you're going to control a lot of lands. Say you control like 8 lands when you drop this. You create 8 0/1 green planet creature tokens. So that's a pretty good stall tactic. And then the landfall trigger, you're going to be able to put a token, a +1/+1 token, a counter, I'm sorry, on each one of the tokens. So all of a sudden they are 1/2s, and then they can be like 2/3s if you drop more than 1 land in that very turn. But also, what's more important, these are +1/+1 counters. They stay on the things. So those are going to be some really pesky tokens. Then the Worm is a 7/6/6 Trampler, and whenever it deals damage to an opponent, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty good because of the trample. Yeah, that's very reasonable. Then the Monstrosity, which was kind of a dud when it was in Innistrad and it was in Standard. When it dies, you exile it and you return 2 creature cards at random from your graveyard to the battlefield. That sounds great. That's not how it played out in Standard. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it plays out a lot better in Commander. We will find out. I've never played this card in Commander. So it reads good, but I distinctly remember it not being that great when it was in Standard. Okay, so then to the spells, we're dumping lands in the graveyard and we're drawing as many lands as possible. That's why Explore, Cultivate, and Harrow are in here. Okay, so I'm going to read those 3, even though they're on different screens. Explore, you may play an additional land this turn. What I like about it is you get to choose when you play it. So you're going to have that extra land to play, and then you draw a card. That's fantastic. Cultivate, you search your library for 2 basic lands. Put 1 on the battlefield and the other 1 in your hand, and then shuffle your library. That's very good. And then Harrow, you sack a land, and you search your library for 2 basic lands. This is a good way, in case your mana screwed out of one of your 3 colors, to get that extra 3rd color that you're missing. Grapple with the Past and Grisly Salvage are your typical mulch effects. So in the case of Grapple, you put the top 3 cards of your library in your graveyard, and then you return a creature or a land card to your hand. In the case of Grisly Salvage, you reveal the top 5 cards of your graveyard, not 3. Put a creature or a land card into your hand, and then you feed the graveyard. The Twister deals X damage to each creature, so it's kind of like a board wipe. Now, it's each creature, so it includes your creature, so you have to be very careful when you play it. But it's pretty good. I mean, you know, let's just call it X equals 3. It deals 3 damage to each creature at 5. And it deals 4 damage at 6. Yeah, that's very, very good. Stitched Together, it's a 2-drop sorcery, and you return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. It's got a Threshold, which is a graveyard ability, I believe, from Odyssey, if I remember correctly. Return that card from your graveyard to the battlefield if 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. And that's probably going to be the case. Those cards include all these lands that you're dumping in the graveyard. That's fine. Consigned to Dust. If it's got Strive, it must come from Journey into Nyx, and it costs 2 green more to cast for each target beyond the first. Destroy any number of target artifacts and or enchantments. Okay, so any number. So you destroy the first one for 3 of either an artifact or an enchantment, and then you keep adding 3. Strive was okay when it was Journey into Nyx. I thought it was pretty good, but you know, you're constantly paying more mana, you'd be surprised of how few times you get to cast it for more than just 1 or 2 of that. It's okay. We already talked about Cultivate. Far Wanderings is a 3-drop sorcery. Another one of these get a land from your library, and you put it on the battlefield, tap, and it's got the threshold, which means that if you got 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you search up to for up to 3 basic lands, and they go on the battlefield tap. That is fantastic. That's really way better than a lot of these other get a land from your deck cards. Gaze of Granite, I believe it's from Return to Ravnica block. Don't remember which set. Destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X or less. Non-land permanent includes Planeswalkers, Sagas, Enchantments. Yeah, that's really good. It can take out a lot. You have to upfront pay black, green, but yeah, that's good. We already talked about Harrow. Lavalanche, X and 1 of each of the colors in Jund deals X damage to target player or planeswalker, and each creature that player or that planeswalker's controller controls. Yeah, similar to Gaze of Granite. A little more restricted, both in the case of mana and in the case of where you can hit, because it's target player or planeswalker. But I don't know, they complement each other rather well, because Gaze of Granite cannot hit target player, and Lavalanche cannot hit any other permanent than a planeswalker, but it can hit target player. Putrefy, destroy target artifact or creature, and it cannot be regenerated. That's good. One of the classics. Goes in every deck that it fits in theme. Ruinous Path, you're in lands, so you got a lot of lands, and so Awaken is your friend in this deck. Matter of fact, you can, as an exercise to expand on this precon, I would go through all the Awaken cards in Jund out of Battle for Zendikar block. I believe that's where it's from. Maybe I would find other cards, but Ruinous Path is your typical 1 black sorcery. Every set has one. It's a rare, and it can destroy a planeswalker, and that's really good. Because it used to be that the only way to destroy a planeswalker was to hit to face to the player and then channel the hit to the planeswalker. With these cards, you just destroy the you can destroy the planeswalker outright. That's really great, right? That's what I think. Chain Reaction, 4-drop sorcery, deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. Man, yeah. In Commander, that can be a really nice board wipe. If you're like, all right, I got board wiped. I'm not happy. I have this thing in my hand. Okay, I'm gonna board wipe you all too. Let's go. Decimate, destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land for 4. That's pretty good. If this card is in the first Ravnica set, yeah, I don't know where it is from. I'll look it up. Yeah, nice, for 4. Fantastic. An artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a land. Yeah, that's great. Explosive Vegetation, another great card. You can get 2 basic lands, and they go on the battlefield. Yeah, solid. Hunting Wilds. It's got kicker, so it can become you have to be 6 green to get the kicker cost. You get 2 forest cards and put them on the battlefield. But if you pay the kicker cost, you untap all forest, so they enter untapped, and they become 3/3 green creatures with haste that are still lands. Yeah, that can be a very opportunistic hit. It's a sorcery, so you're not going to do it as a battle trick. That's fine. Moonlight Bargain, I like the artwork. Old school magic artwork. 5-drop instant. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. For each card, put that card into your graveyard unless you pay 2 life. Put the rest in your hand. Are you willing to pay 10 life to draw 5 cards? In some decks, in a life gain, say like a white-black life gain deck, this would be amazing. In this deck, it's still pretty good because you're throwing stuff at the graveyard that you can do something with. Warm Harvest is fantastic. It can be reprinted in the next 5,000 sets, and someone would want it because for 5 mana, you can create a 1/1 black and green warm token for each land card in your graveyard, and you can retrace it. So you can cast it from the graveyard by discarding a land. It's almost like a flashback, but it discards a land instead of paying a mana cost. Artifacts, not that many here. Your standard Soul Ring, everybody gets a Soul Ring. And then the Seer Sundial has landfall. And if you may pay 2 and the land enters into the battlefield and you draw a card, that's great. That's really, really good. Not that many enchantments. The Heart Expedition has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put a quest counter on this thing. You remove 3 quest counters, sack it, and you search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. And then they go on the battlefield tapped. Yeah. Put it in. Say turn 2 at the earliest. Turn 3. And turn 2. You would have then turn 3, 4, 5. So turn 5. It's already got the counters, and you get 2 lands, and you can drop something big. Yeah, it's good. It's a good acceleration. The retreat to Hagra, I like the retreats for sure when they came out of battle for Zendikar. It's got a landfall trigger, and the target creature gets +1/+0, gains death touch, and you got to choose one, or each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Then the Death Ritual has Morbid. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. Yeah, that's great. And you can choose whether to draw it or not. I think that's a great card. And we're done. Thank you very much.